My night shift at Dollar Tree exposed terrifying secrets that still haunt me. I never should have opened that door. It was just my regular night shift, scanning food items, greeting customers, and shelving odd bits of merchandise. But an unsettling aura hung heavy in the air, like the crisp chill of autumn evenings. I brushed it off at first, a mere trick of the light. Yet, as the clock ticked past midnight, that eerie feeling sank deeper into my bones. Every corner of the store whispered secrets. The aisles, once familiar, now felt foreign and sinister. Shadows danced on the walls, creeping closer as I moved. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering occasionally, casting brief fits of darkness that seemed to hide something watching. Every so often, I'd catch a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye, but when I turned, nothing was there. I could smell the faintest hint of something metallic, slightly sweet, causing a tight knot in my stomach. It made me uneasy. I was suffocated by the cold stillness that thickened the air, wrapping around me like a cloying fog. My heart raced as I restocked the shelves. The rustle of plastic wrapping and the soft clatter of cans felt amplified in the silence. Something didn't feel right, and I felt it crawling on my skin. Suddenly, a loud crash. A display of Halloween decorations tumbled to the ground, the sound slicing through the stillness. It felt deliberate, like a message. My pulse quickened. I pushed my way over to the mess, eyes darting around. I felt teeth gritting, tension cooking inside me. "Hello?" I called out, my voice quivering. No answer, just the relentless hum of the lights. Then came the softest of whispers, barely audible but unmistakable, brushing against my ear like a cold breeze. I spun around. Nothing. That I took a shaky breath, wishing for the familiarity of daylight. I cursed under my breath, convinced it was my imagination running wild. I resumed my work, forcing my mind to focus. But the air was thicker now, the shadows longer. I peeked back at the door leading to the stockroom. I could swear I saw something move, a flicker of a dark figure just outside my field of vision. I hesitated. Should I investigate? As I neared the door, an unfamiliar chill rushed over me. A chill that shook me to my core. I reached for the handle, breaths shallow, heart pounding. Just as I was about to turn it, the lights flickered violently before plunging the store into darkness. Panic surged through me as I fumbled for my phone. I needed light, comfort, anything, but then, in that deafening silence, I heard Ida's shuffling, dragging sound just behind the door. I froze. The eeriness had reached its peak. I couldn't remember ever feeling so vulnerable. The shadows gathered, as if they were pooling together to form something far worse than I could imagine. My hands trembled, my throat was dry, and then the door creaked open, revealing a silhouette, dark and looming. I couldn't breathe. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The figure stepped into the meager light, its shape both grotesque and familiar, as if composed of 1,000 dark memories. My breath caught in my throat. The silhouette wasn't just a presence, it was a distorted reflection of someone I once knew, a former employee long gone, rumored to have vanished without a trace. As the faint glow flickered from my trembling phone, I could make out features that twisted and writhed, a haunting reassurance that this was not a mere figment of my imagination. Help me. The voice was a raspy whisper, barely coherent yet heavy with desperation. It felt as if the very walls of the store shivered, absorbing the words, eager to swallow the echo of anguish whole. Who are you? My voice was a hoarse breath, laden with fear. I stumbled backward, nearly colliding with a rack of discounted candles. The scent of unsold lavender wafted through the air, an absurd contrast to the chilling figure before me. The apparition tilted its head, darkness pooling in its eye sockets where light should have been a hollow gaze that drew the very warmth from the room. I am that which you cannot remember. It took a step closer, the air thicker with the tang of decay. And I am which you should fear that I wanted to bolt, to escape the clutches of this nightmare, but my body felt paralyzed by dread. The checkout aisle, with its flickering lights and absence of customers, felt like a prison. What do you want? I managed to croak out, clenching my fists to anchor myself against the spinning vertigo of terror. Ownership, it replied, the word falling from its lips like rotten fruit. Your soul. This store, it gestured toward the aisles, it thrives on what it consumes. Wasn't that what we discussed? All those long shifts, the bargain bins, everything comes at a price. A memory tugged painfully at the edges of my mind. Twinkling lights, late-night discussions with coworkers about strange occurrences in the store. Whispers traded over the counter, small talk morphing into tales of missing items and whispered warnings. We always laughed them off, ever naive. But now. The laughter twisted into a shriek, reverberating in my ears as the air vibrated with the insidious laughter of the shadows surrounding us. You're not real. I shouted, desperate to break the hold of this grotesque mirage. Oh, but I am. The figure grinned, exposing teeth that were sharp and stained, the remnants of a life claimed far too soon. Suddenly, it lunged forward. I stumbled back into the disarray of the Halloween aisle, plastic skeletons clattering to the ground, and I could feel its cold breath brushing against my neck. That heartbeat, I knew I had to run, to escape the labyrinthine depths of this store that had become a cage of horrors. I pivoted, darting toward the exit. But as I reached for the door, a powerful force slammed down against my shoulder, pinning me in place. A vision pierced through my mind like shards of glass. The store, its decor festooned with remnants of lost lives. The faces of other employees flickered in and out within the shadows around me. You let them come in, the voice whispered, now closer, slithering around my sanity. You brought us here. In a whirlwind, I twisted to face the darkness as it closed in, shadows forging into forms that writhed and pulsated like a living spiral. They seeped from the walls, crawling toward me with a hunger that made my skin crawl. You can't escape your fate, not from here. I felt the grip loosen, the moisture in the air making it difficult to breathe, but the terror had given way to a primal instinct to survive. As the wails of tormented souls echoed in my mind, surrounding me as if the walls themselves bled despair, I saw them. Glimpses of employees missing for years, faces twisted, eternally trapped in the grasp of this forsaken place. With one final surge of strength, I threw myself forward, but an unseen force slammed me back against the cold tile floor, pinning me. My vision blurred, a shadow loomed closer, stretching out with skeletal hands that reached for me, desperate, insatiable. In the depths of my rising panic, I caught sight of a flash, a reflection from the glass cases filled with merchandise. Through the chaos, I glimpsed something moving at the edge of the store. No, multiple things, roused by the escalating dread. A chill rushed through me as I realized they were not confined to just the shadow-drenched corners, they were crawling out from the depths, one by one. As I became paralyzed with fear, the figure was right, I had brought them with me. And they had come to collect. I screamed, but it was swallowed by the void. Just as I felt the tightening grip pull me into the weight of endless darkness, the store's doors burst open with a force that echoed like a gunshot. Light flooded into the darkness, slicing through the shadows, but as I raised my head, I was met with the sight of a figure standing in the doorway, lip curling in a grim smile. Gotcha, they whispered softly, and as they stepped into the light, I realized it was someone I knew from my past, their clothes tattered, their eyes vacant. Welcome back. The realization tore through me like a jagged shard of ice. This was Claire, my former colleague, who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances months ago. Her once vibrant spirit now seemed extinguished, replaced by a hollow shell clothed in rags, hints of her former self barely discernible through the veil of decay that clung to her. Claire. I gasped, the name a hesitant breath on my lips. What happened to you? She stepped further into the store, oblivious to the chaos around us, her eyes glossed over, as if she were peering through a long, nameless corridor of anguish and regret. Behind her, the shadows writhed with newfound aggression, their hunger only intensified. "You didn't heed the warnings," she replied, her voice distant, each word weighed down by an unfathomable sorrow. "You thought this place was just a store. But it's so much more. It feeds on despair." A cold wave crashed over me. I could feel every pulse of darkness creeping toward us in waves. The entities, the trapped souls of those who never escaped, circled with accusatory eyes, and their whispers intertwined to form a melody of suffering that wrapped around my heart like a vice. Claire was standing at the fulcrum of this malevolence, seemingly embracing it rather than fearing it. In that moment, I realized her arrival was not a salvation, it was an awakening. She belonged to them now. "You brought me back," she murmured, her smile both inviting and ghastly, devoid of joy. "They need us to help them. We must fulfill the pact. Join us." Desperation clawed at my throat. "No. I want." I screamed, fighting against the grip of the shadows, the weight of their sorrow pressing down like a titanic force. I could still feel the edge of the doorway behind me, a sliver of hope amidst the encroaching void. For a fleeting moment, Claire's eyes flickered with something akin to recognition, and I saw a glimpse of the friend I had once known beneath the layers of pain. "You have to run," she urged, her voice cracking like fragile glass. "Before it's too late," before she could finish, the shadows surged, drowning her words in a cacophony of wails. A chilling wind swept through the aisles, snuffing out the flickering lights, and the store was plunged into an abyss of darkness. The familiar sounds of shopping carts wheeling through the aisles twisted into an eerie symphony of despair. Summoning every ounce of strength left within me, I bolted toward the entrance, pushing through an onslaught of swirling shadows. Behind me, I could hear the sound of tearing fabric, the echoes of Claire's form merging into the darkness, her last desperate plea for release merging with the sinister whispers of the damned. As I reached the doorway, a screech erupted from the depths of the story, a harrowing cry that vibrated through the air like shattering glass, sending chills down my spine. You won't leave." The voice, a chorus of tortured life and death, contorted into one angry roar, echoed like a thunderclap against my fragile resolve. I flung myself forward, the light cutting through the dark like a sword, promising a refuge. But before my feet could touch the ground, an unseen force slammed against my chest, slamming me back into the darkness. The floorboards gripped me like fingers of ancient wood, and I felt myself being drawn back, sucked into the void that wished to claim me. I am not finished. A desperate voice screamed from the shadows, but I couldn't decipher whose it was among the cacophony. A dozen faces flashed before me, friends, my co-workers, each caught in the same snare, their screams morphing into a single haunting mantra reverberating around me. With one last surge of clarity, I cast a desperate glance back into the depths of that infinite darkness, where I could just barely make out the outlines of the lost souls that had been trapped within, still writhing in anguish. I yelled out to Claire, my throat raw, "I'm coming back for you." But my words were swallowed by the horrors hungry for my spirit. As the darkness pulled me deeper, the last vestiges of light extinguished, and I felt my senses drown in despair. In the silence that followed, amidst the drumming of my heart, I began to lose my grip on who I was. And just as the world of shadows began to envelop me entirely, I caught a glimpse of something, or someone, creeping toward the threshold of impossibility. Amongst the shifting depths, two piercing eyes fixed upon Metho's unmistakable eyes that I had thought I would never see again. They glowed within the darkness, an unholy light that grew brighter, illuminating the hell around me. I gasped as the figure stepped closer, a smile spreading across its lips. "Welcome back, my dear. I've been waiting." And as the darkness tightened its grasp, I felt the earth shift beneath me, a terrible truth loomed ahead, and with it, an unimaginable terror. The figure stepped into the dim light that flickered erratically, casting monstrous shadows on the broken shelves. It moved with an unsettling grace, a predatory elegance that betrayed its true nature. My breath hitched as the face of my former boss materialized, Mr. Donovan, the owner of the store. His eyes, once sharp with ambition, were now clouded with a foreboding glee that sent a shiver down my spine. "Donovan." My voice trembled, torn between disbelief and a suffocating certainty that his reappearance was no coincidence. Deep lines carved into his features hinted at ages of torment I had never known. "What are you doing here?" He chuckled softly, an echo that reverberated throughout the cavernous aisles, intertwining with the mournful cries still hanging in the air like a dreadful symphony. "Oh, dear child, you've stumbled onto our little secret," he purred, pushing closer, the shadows licking at his heels with hungry anticipation. "Secret?" I gasped, stepping back, but the store had twisted into a labyrinth, all exits faded into the oppressive gloom that surrounded us. "What did you do? What is this place?" Donovan paused, his smile stretching wider, almost maniacal now. "This place feeds on despair, as Claire so wisely pointed out. But it's more than just hunger, it is a sanctuary for those who have lost their way. You see, the store was built upon the anguish of many the discarded memories, the untold secrets our sorrow fuels its very existence that I recoiled as realization dawned on me. The low whispers coiled around my thoughts, wrapping tighter until I could hardly breathe. This was not merely a store, it was a tomb, a gallery of lost souls whose bitterness and regret thrummed with an almost palpable energy. And Yuri the master, feeding on all of this? I stammered, anger rising to overshadow my fear, his laughter smothered my protest, filling my mind with dark reverberations. Master? No. I am but a steward of this cursed domain. We all have a role to play, my dear. Claire embraced her fate. She is helping those trapped within these walls to find peace, or perhaps eternal suffering. His eyes gleamed with a revelatory spark, as if he delighted in the torment he orchestrated. Before I could respond, the shadows writhed with renewed vigor, swirling ominously. I caught glimpses of ghostly figures forming within them, faces twisted in agony, mouths open in silent screams. They were trapped between the veil of this world and the next, each an echoing reminder of all the souls lost to the insatiable void. I felt their eyes bore into me, judging, pleading, echoing Claire's words of warning, "Join us." Donovan coaxed, stepping closer, his outstretched hand resembling a dark promise. "You could stand beside Claire, help ease their pain. You felt the dread, you know how powerful that can be. Together, we could harness it, no." I screamed, the sound crackling through the oppressive atmosphere, punctuated by the sudden crack of a barrel tipping to the floor. The echo shattered the eerie stillness around us, as if the store itself had responded to my defiance. The group of lost souls began to swirl faster, their faces morphing into familiar visages, a moving tapestry of regret and anguish. Friends, acquaintances, people I had known in life. Their mouths moved in unison, a chorus of hopeless righteousness, their anger palpable. "Help us! Help us escape!" They cried, their fingers stretching out towards me like branches from the dead. That I staggered back, heart racing, overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of horror surrounding me. "You can't be real!" I gasped, trying to shield my eyes, but they persisted, bursting forth with their cries. Donovan's shadow loomed larger, blocking my path to freedom as the rumble of darkness filled the air like a storm about to strike. "Oh, they are real, my dear. What's not real is your chance to leave. You must understand, you are connected to them now, every ounce of your despair has made you a part of this dark tapestry." He leaned in closer, his breath swirling with a chill that cut me deep within. "And soon, your suffering will be too, unless you choose to join us." Caught between the shadows and a living nightmare, my mind raced. I had seen too much, felt too much. I couldn't succumb, I wouldn't. I had to find a way out. But in that desperate moment, the ground trembled beneath me. A loud creaking noise echoed as a wall of shelving fell mercilessly, the rumbling of chaos climbing higher. From the shadows, dark tendrils shot out, eager to pull me into the abyss. A piercing scream erupted from the void, and in that moment, a figure burst through a wild, torn apparition, glistening with the remnants of life. That it was Claire, her form flickering as she reached for me. "Run! Now!" The words came out as a guttural roar, her voice breaking under the weight of panic and urgency. The shadows recoiled, momentarily drawn back at her command. But Donovan's laughter swelled around us, a taunting call to the depths. "You can't escape this, it's your fate." With no time to ponder the consequences, I grasped Claire's hand, launching ourselves toward a flicker of light at the far end of the aisle. We sprinted forward, the shadows gathering force behind us. I could feel their cold fingers grazing my skin, pulling me backward, threatening to undo every step I took toward freedom, and as the light surged, I dared to glance back one last time. Donovan, his expression burning with fury, stepped past my friends, my family, and concluded the moment with a haunting whisper that cut through the chaos: "You can run, but you can never truly escape. The pact binds us all." Just as we rushed through the exit, a deafening crack echoed through the store, and darkness exploded around us, devouring everything in its path. Gripping Claire's hand, I plunged beyond the threshold, pulling her into the blinding light, but uncertainty weighed heavy on my heart. As I tumbled forward into the light, I heard a chilling question echoing from the darkness behind me: "Which one of you will stay?" In that final moment, I realized the true cost of our escape might not be as simple as it seemed. I staggered through the light, my heart hammering, the rush of hope clashing with dread like storm clouds converging. Soft rays wrapped around us, but their warmth felt suspicious, foreign amidst the pervasive coldness that had clung to me from the store. I blinked against the brightness, the sudden transition leaving my vision blurred and disoriented. When it cleared, we stood in an empty parking lot, the sterile silence of the outside world feeling like a cruel joke in contrast to the chaos we had just fled. Claire's face flickered like a fading film reel, each second erasing more of her existence. "We're not safe yet," she breathed, a haunted echo of herself, her voice strained but urgent. "It's still watching, waiting. The store doesn't let go so easily." How? How could it come here? My voice was shaky as echoes of Donovan's sinister laughter ricocheted in my mind, an oppressive reminder of what lurked beyond the border of light. "I thought we escaped," she shook her head, the expression on her face tinged with both fear and resolution. "It's a part of us now. We carried its darkness with us. The connection won't break just because we crossed a physical boundary." Her gaze darted around, as if the very air was searching for signs of danger. "We have to keep moving." I had no time to argue, no room to question her words as a shiver slid down my spine like icy fingers ghosting along my neck. The desolation of the lot stretched endlessly, the bright lights of the storefronts appearing in sharp contrast, almost blinding. But behind me, shadows pooled at the edge of the light, swirling like angry windstorm, eager to reach out and consume us. My instinct screamed for retreat, to find safety in that relentless brightness. As the distant glow pulsed with promising warmth, frantically, I moved in sync with Claire, pulling her along as we sprinted towards the nearest store. A convenience store loomed large, its door betrayed by a flickering, "Open" sign, yet darkness loomed just beyond the canvas of fluorescent tubes, taunting us with the promise of safety, while whispers echoed ominously behind us. Inside, a wave of relief washed over me, only to be immediately tainted by the eerie quiet. The shelves were stocked but empty of life, a single, crumpled magazine sat headline screaming of missing persons but with dates too recent to justify the randomness. A chill crept into my bones as I scanned the dark corners, my heartbeat still thunderous in my ears. Where do we go? What do we do now? I pressed, trying to navigate my own maelstrom of thoughts while wishing desperately for normalcy to return, to wake from this nightmare. "The basement," she whispered urgently. "It's the only place we could hide from its senses." I swallowed hard, swallowing every instinct that clamored for escape. I could almost feel the jealousy of the store behind us, clawing at the thin veil separating us from a renewed grasp. The basement? It might be worse down there. Claire's expression hardened, the flickering light reflecting the depths of her desperation. "You have to trust me." She grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward a door in the back, beneath a rickety sign that simply read "Employees Only." With each step down the creaky stairs, sound faded, swallowed into the oppressive abyss below. The air grew heavier, almost suffocating, as we descended into darkness so profound it felt sentient. I stumbled, gripping the railing, my knuckles white under the pressure. At the bottom, I hesitated, the gloom stretching out like a hungry maw, devouring the dim light that tracked us. Claire stepped further inside, and I followed reluctantly, the instinct to flee clawing at my insides. The fluorescent light overhead buzzed ominously, casting frantic shadows across the cramped space walls smothered with vines of mildew and despair. Then I heard something, a soft thumping, rhythmic and insistent, like a heartbeat reverberating from within the very walls. Fear gripped me, intermingled with a surreal sense of loss. What is that? Claire, what's happening? Don't you see? Claire's eyes were wide with understanding. It's alive, the store, it's alive. It feeds off of pain and regret, but we need to find its heart. What heart? This is madness. I stammered, dread pooling in my stomach like lead, every instinct screaming to turn back. Suddenly, a cacophony erupted from the depths of the basement, resonating violently. The very structure quaked as whispers turned to screams, the echoes of lost souls increasing, merging into a cacophony that weighed heavy in the air. Clutching my head, I fell to my knees as the primal fear surged through me. Claire! I screamed over the rising din, my voice barely piercing through the chaos. What do we do? She knelt beside me, her face as pale as a fading ghost, each word strained but urgent. We have to give it what it wants, our pain. Before I could react, I felt the ground shake under us, the darkness shifting, and suddenly, like a sharp knife cutting through the haze, a figure emerged from the shadows at the far end of the basement, framed by the echoes of the past I sought to escape. It was Donovan, his grotesque smile stretching impossibly wide, impossibly hungry, looming with an almost tangible presence that wrapped around me, as if to drain me of every vital ounce of hope and resolve. His voice rose above the chaos, a twisted melody. Welcome back. You see, I told you, you could never truly escape. A gasp escaped my lips, the taste of terror igniting every fiber of my being as the lights began to flicker more violently, shadows writhing and closing in. Now, my dear, Donovan called, his eyes dancing with a manic fascination, who will stay? And within that moment, an unseen force pulled at Claire, wrenching her close to him, while I desperately clung to both her and my sanity, caught between the chilling offer of companionship and the nightmarish certainty that I could become as lost as those I had just fled. In the final shuddering moments, I understood the ultimate horror. The store's heart was not merely a source of life, it was a choice between escape and annihilation. The shadows writhed in chaos as Donovan's laughter rang out, a warped symphony that spiraled into a dissonant cacophony, blurring the lines between reality and nightmare. My grip on Claire tightened, her eyes wide in terror, reflecting my own burgeoning dread. I could feel the air around us thicken with an icy grasp, as if the very fabric of the basement pulsed with malevolence. Donovan! I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. Let her go. This isn't a game. But my words fell flat against the looming darkness, as vacant as the void itself. That he stepped closer, his figure twisting in the flickering light, each footfall resonating like a heartbeat, mirroring the drumming echo that had filled my ears since the moment we stepped downstairs. The basement appeared to stretch, shadows snaking around us like serpents, their dark scales glistening in anticipation. Game? No, he replied, his voice a silken whisper that slithered through the air. It's a transaction. Pain for freedom, remember? Claire whimpered, her eyes darting back and forth, searching for a way out, but the solid walls felt like a tomb closing in. I could sense her weakening resolve, the fear creeping up on her like an insidious fog. We can't give him anything. Whatever he wants, we have to deny him. I ground my teeth, the adrenaline flooding my system even as despair threatened to throttle me. Oh, but darling, Donovan breathed, it's too late for that. The darkness has already begun to feed on your sorrow. He gestured to the walls, where shadows bled outwards, coalescing into ghostly faces, mournful, pleading, eyes full of anguish that mirrored our own. Each visage told a story of despair, of lives consumed by the store's insatiable hunger. A piercing wail erupted from the very depths of the room, a raw cry that reverberated against the cold concrete like a sorrowful symphony. That's one of them, Claire murmured, her voice shaking. We have to escape now. She tried to pull away from the nightmarish figure, but he was already circling around us, wrapping us in a web of unnatural allure and dread. Leave. Donovan laughed, the sound echoing like a drumbeat of suffering. There is no escape from what you've willingly brought upon yourselves. You've opened the door to this realm, and now we play by its rules. The walls began to hum, resonating in rhythm with the throbbing heart of darkness. I was acutely aware that we were not just within a store's basement, we were deep inside a predatory entity that devoured those who dared tread too close. The pulse grew stronger, a throbbing echo that felt almost alive, intensifying the panic coiling in my gut. No! I screamed, fighting against the despair enveloping me like a shroud. I could feel the cold seeping into my bones, wrapping tendrils of despair around my very heart. We are not your playthings. As if he conjured it from thin air, Donovan produced a small mirror, its surface dark and reflective. Look! See the truth that lies within your own souls. Instinctively, I shrank back, but it was too late. Claire, caught in entrancement, drifted towards it, her hands outstretched with a frail sense of longing. In my heart, I wrestled with the desire to protect her and the sheer compulsion to snap her out of the trance. No, Claire! Don't look! I shouted, lunging towards her, but the mirror's surface flickered, drawing her in further, the light warping the despair reflected back at her, a lifetime of regret pooling in that black abyss, whispering sweet lies laced with torment. Suddenly, she broke free from the spell, jerking her gaze away and finding her footing, but it was too late. The horror that had braided itself into our lives was now a tangible entity, the store's heart, pulsing through the basement, feeding off every flicker of fear. Donovan's smile widened, revealing teeth far too sharp for a human. And now, the real game begins. Choose wisely, dears. Sometimes salvation looks a lot like suffering. A deafening clang erupted nearby, sending a shudder through the basement as shelves began to collapse, darkness spiraling upward like smoke from an extinguishing flame. The phantom faces wailed louder, now desperate cries that thrashed against my sanity. And then it happened, a flash of blinding light that engulfed the basement, everything spun into chaos. In the midst of the maelstrom, I lost sight of Claire. Claire! I screamed, terror swamping me like ink. I reached out into the swirling shadows, my heart racing as I felt tendrils of darkness reach for me, beckoning, promising an end to the agony, an end underscored by haunting echoes of lost souls. But one thought anchored me in that storm, a desperate need to find her before any bond forged in suffering could ensnare her forever. When the light finally dimmed, and the shadows receded just slightly, I was left in a new, chilling silence. The basement was empty, devoid of life. Donovan had vanished, but I felt my breath hitch as I turned slowly, dread creeping back into my veins. Ceilings loomed ominously close, and the air thickened with a smell of decay. As I stumbled back, a low, resonant thumping began anew, echoing from deep within the walls, the unmistakable rhythm of a heart, hungry and waiting, and then I saw a glint of silver metal poking out from beneath a pile of debris. I rushed forward, desperate for anything to save us from this nightmare. But as I cleared the mess away, my heart stopped. It was Claire's necklace, the one she wore every day, shining brightly, yet cold as ice. The whispers returned, swirling through my mind like errant smoke. She was still down here somewhere, the store's darkness cradling her within its twisted confines. A ghastly realization washed over me. Was it too late? Had I lost her to the grasp of the store? Just as I turned to flee, I felt a cold presence behind me, just a breath away. I did not need to turn to know what was there. The dread coiled violently in my stomach, settling heavily as a rasping whisper pierced the silence, chilling my bones. Where do you think you're going? And in that moment of frozen horror, the basement erupted with screams of agony, the lights flaring one last time before plunging me into shadows as cold and unforgiving as the depths of despair. The void pulsated, filling the air with pulsating dread as though the basement itself conspired against me. Shadows danced in the corners of my vision, taunting and jeering, but my focus remained solely on that gnawing fear for Claire. The thumping heart behind me echoed louder, a relentless drumbeat urging me to turn around. Claire! I called again, my voice hardly more than a whisper swallowed by the sinister silence. I backed away from the necklace, its cold gleam a mocking reminder of her absence. I stumbled, the ground beneath me uneven yet persistent, dragging me deeper into this labyrinth of darkness. The oppressive weight of despair descended further, coiling around my chest like a vice. The air felt electric, charged with something more than fear, a presence that simmered just beneath my skin, urging me to succumb. "Donovan!" I shouted into the void, half expecting his laugh to bounce off the walls. Instead, darkness yawned wider, unfurling tentacles that threatened to seize me. I blinked rapidly, trying to force back the images in my mind, those poor, lost souls displayed in shadows. What had allowed them to be trapped in this unspeakable limbo? Suddenly, the ground shook beneath my feet, and I whirled around, adrenaline surging through my veins. The basement trembled as if a great beast had begun to awaken. I could hear muffled voices now, intermingling with the rhythmic thump of the store's heart, a chorus of despair weaving together from the depths below. Without thinking, I ran, desperate to find a way out. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out the terrified whispers calling my name. I charged into the shadows, pushing through the aisles, praying they would grant me passage, but the darkness shifted, the shelves morphing as I navigated through sections that seemed to twist and warp. I felt eyes on me, countless unseen watchers lurking just out of sight, their anticipation prickling my skin. Then, as I skidded around a corner, I froze. Before me lay a doorway slightly ajar, light spilling out like an invitation. I took a hesitant step forward, my breath hitching as I sensed the barrier between this world and whatever lurked within. As I peered into the light, the soft glow illuminated a scene that froze my blood. Claire was in there, her arms outstretched towards someone or something adrift in the radiant expanse. Confusion and joy battled within me, igniting hope even as I felt the dread radiating from the place like a noxious fog. "Claire!" I bellowed, advancing toward the doorway. "I'm coming." But she remained motionless, entranced, as if caught in a trance woven by the store's hostility. In that moment, I glimpsed the figures that surrounded her, pitiful, wretched faces, twisted with unholy longing. I recognized them from the visage in the shadows, the lost souls cradled in despair. What were they doing to her? The warmth of the light beckoned to me, but I could see Claire's desperation splintering further, caught between two realms, light and darkness, hope and despair. I lunged toward her, but a shivering gust slammed the door shut before I could touch her. Waves of panic surged through me. I pounded against the door, feeling its cold surface thrum in response. "Claire! Don't listen to them!" I shouted, my voice hoarse, deep dread clenching my heart like a vice. But she remained behind that veil, eyes vacant yet pleading, as if lost in the depths of another world. The walls vibrated with a sinister laugh, a cackling, triumphant sound that felt like a knife carving through my mind. Donovan's presence loomed larger than life, echoing through the wood. "Oh, but dear, haven't you learned? She can only be freed with a cost. I repeated, feeling sick as I staggered backward from the door, my heart racing with an impossible thought. "What do you want from me? Only a simple choice. You're suffering for her freedom," he sang, the words curling around me like the tendrils of smoke. In that moment, an unholy insight pierced my soul, the weight of it settling on me like a funeral shroud. My bones screamed, and I knew. I had to decide if my life was worth the price of her soul, but as I took a breath to answer, I felt the earth beneath me shudder, a deafening rumble filling the basement, surging through my core. I tried to steady myself, but the very fabric of reality began to tear, opening a chasm wide enough to swallow my fears whole. Claire's muffled cries echoed from beyond the threshold, a sound I could never ignore. The ground collapsed beneath me, and I plummeted, falling into darkness with nothing but the harrowing knowledge that whatever lay below sought to claim us both. And then, as the world spun in chaotic silence, I heard it. A whisper broke the stillness, scaling my very spine like ice. Someone or something exhaled my name, drawing me deeper into the abyss, mocking me in a terrible harmony. "Where do you think you're going?" The shadows consumed me, wrapping around my limbs as I fell, the sensation oddly weightless yet unmistakably suffocating. It felt as though I was diving into the depths of an unfathomable ocean, darkness closing in from every direction. I braced for impact, but the ground met me not with a jarring thud, but with a whisper, a soft flutter of air carrying an unsettling calm that felt foreign and wrong. I opened my eyes within this obscurity, the pitch black so profound I could barely discern my own body. Dread seeped into my pores, prompting me to rise, to find my bearings, but my limbs were entangled, weighed down by the heavy stillness of despair that coiled around me like the grip of a vengeful lover. "Claire," I murmured into the void, hoping my voice would act as an anchor. Yet the silence echoed back, mocking my attempts to reach out. Panic coiled shackles around my heart, but I forced myself to breathe through it, to push past the terror and probe further into the darkness in search of an exit. An answer. A faint flicker ignited behind the thick veil of black, a wavering light that piqued my curiosity. I staggered forward, driven by a primal instinct that urged me into the warmth emanating from its source. As I approached, indistinct shapes began to materialize in the glow, a warped tableau of broken memories frozen in time. Faces peered out at me from the darkness, gaunt and hollow, mouths agape in silent screams. My skin prickled in recognition, each face blurring into the next, but all were shrouded in the same unbearable agony. Who are you?" I rasped, the tremor in my voice barely betraying my terror. They did not reply. Instead, their eyes flickered with shards of desperation, pleading for something I couldn't comprehend. I felt the air grow heavier, an oppressive weight as those hollow stares seemed to converge upon me. In the faint light, I noticed writing scrawled across the walls, ancient symbols intertwined with flowing scripts, repetitions of one word: soul. A chill raced down my spine as realization hit me. This was not just a basement, it was a prison, a crypt where countless souls had been ensnared, awaiting release or punishment. And then, like a frigid gust sweeping through the night, the whispers returned, not mine this time, but a cacophony. Each soul sang out in a harmony of lamentation, weaving jagged notes that pierced the silence with a jagged, unending wail. "Save us," they cried, their voices weaving through the air like strands of fog. "Bring us to the light, or join us in the void, Claire." I screamed, the name shattering the overwhelming drone as desperation clawed at my throat. I stumbled backward, feeling lost among their anguished sounds, trying to shut them out but unable to silence their collective sorrow. Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath me. Through the pulse of darkness, I caught sight of movement, shadows coalescing into a grotesque form. My heart seized as it morphed into a silhouette, long and twisted, dripping with malice. Its eyes flickered to life, twin flashes of red in the depths of the void, burning with an unholy hunger. "You sought her, and now you've come to claim your place among them," it spoke, voice like gravel dragged across bone. "Your sacrifice will not go unrecognized. She hungers still, leave her out of this." I shouted, defiance bursting forth even as my knees quaked. "You can't use her." "I will," but before I could finish, a shriek erupted from the distance, unmistakably Claire's voice, shattering my resolve and plunging me into a pit of despair. It echoed through the void, a raw sound of pain that clawed at my heart. No. I howled, lunging toward the sound, a surge of pure instinct propelling me forward. The shadow reeled as I charged past, but the ground cracked open beneath me, aga in a yawning chasm, the very foundation giving way to the horrors below. I teetered on the edge, vision blurring with desperation. Hands reached from the depths, skeletal fingers clawing, pulling at me like a tide of sorrow determined to drag me back. "Choose." The shadow howled, while its eyes blazed brighter, fueling my dread. "Your life for hers, or lose her and become one of us." Claire's screams warped into cries of agony, ratcheting up the terror within me, an unbearable weight that pressed upon my spine. And at that moment, the abyss opened wide, display a festering abyss thrumming with the lost soul's torment, an eternity of despair and suffering awaiting to consume me. I hesitated, fear gnawing relentlessly at my resolve as the ghastly tableau threatened to pull me in. "Help!" I cried to the void, clinging to the jagged edge. "I will do anything." In that instant, the whole world tilted violently, and the shadows around me erupted into a chaotic whirl, a tempest of sounds and shapes twisting sinuously. I couldn't tell what was real anymore, but as the ground beneath my feet trembled and crumbled away, I could feel the looming presence of Claire's lost soul calling for me amid the chaos. "Don't let go. She howled, the sound reverberating through the air like lightning striking bone, but just as the darkness lunged to ensnare me, a shimmer broke through, and my senses jolted. I had only one precious second to deck ideas. The shadow lunged for me, aerodynamic tendrils stretching to wrap around my throat, and then, I leaped into the void. What awaited on the other side, I could not begin to fathom. But as I fell, arms extended toward the piercing cries of the damned and the light ahead, I felt the shadows clawing at my back, dragging me into the darkness that promised either salvation or eternal damnation. I landed with a force that knocked the breath from my lungs, and the world swirled back to life, though it was not the world I had left behind. It was a menacing realm, vibrant yet distorted, colors bleeding into one another like an artist's palette drenched in despair. I gasped, my fingers clawing at my surroundings as I pushed myself upright. Before me stood a Dollar Tree, its fluorescent lights flickering with a sinister hum, casting shadows that stretched unnaturally across the linoleum floor. The aisles, once familiar, warped into grotesque parodies of themselves. Product packages twisted into monstrous grins, labels staring back at me with eyes that seemed alive. The air tasted stale and acrid, filling my mouth with bitterness as the memories invaded hours spent in this place, filling shelves and folding receipts that I thrust myself to my feet, dread curling my spine tightly. The store should not have been open at this hour. A sense of dread settled like mist around me as I took first hesitant steps down the eerily quiet aisles. My heart raced, beating like a war drum as I scanned the shelves for any sign of life or a way out. But no one greeted me, only the infinite rows of colorless items stared back, products I had once stocked slipping into a twilight of foreboding. Claire. I forced out once more, dread curling around my gut like barbed wire. The only reply was a low human insistent whisper skittering through the air, drawing me deeper into the gloom. I followed it, compelled by an instinct I couldn't fight, suddenly aware that I was not alone. The ground beneath me pulsed like a living entity, thrumming with anguish, and the whisper grew stronger with each step, morphing into a distorted reflection of Claire's voice. "Help me," it crooned sweetly, yet the notes were jagged, filled with an undertone of malice like a knife beneath satin. The aisles morphed, doorways to other realms, reflections flickered past me, snippets of otherworldly torment. I glimpsed a child's hand reaching out from behind a shelf, tiny fingers beckoning me closer. My heart tightened as I neared, the warmth of innocence shrouded in an all-consuming darkness. I froze, suddenly realizing that the hand was not covered in skin but rather wrapped in a layer of something dark and glistening, the sheen resembling a slick oil that dripped onto the floor. Something in my gut churned as I fought the urge to scream and instead pushed forward, propelled by the need to find her. "Claire." I croaked, but it emerged more as a whisper, swallowed by the overwhelming ambience of dread. A shadow ripped through the light, darting past me as I spun around, the air thick with despair. The shelves began to rumble, items clattering to the ground, a cacophony of mundane objects transforming into harbingers of doom. The sounds began to erupt in disarray, forming a symphony of chaos echoed by the deep whispers now thrumming at the edge of my consciousness. "Join us," they urged, twisting into a single note that soared and fell like a wail. Eyes of malice appeared everywhere among the racks, soulless voids staring from product boxes and mirrors reflecting mangled grins, all bidding me to succumb to the madness that I stumbled backward, the darkness coiling tighter around me. It felt as if the walls themselves were pulsating, contracting and expanding like the lungs of some great beast, drawing me deeper into its clutch. My mind swam, trying to grasp the threads of reality, until I stumbled into the fluorescent glow of the staff break room, a sanctuary, meant to be comforting, but inside, the light flickered violently. I hesitated at the threshold, every muscle frozen in terror. A spectral figure stood in the center, suspended in air, its features obscured by shadow. I could make out traces of Claire's face comically distorted, eyes sunken and pleading, almost unrecognizable. "Save me," she whimpered, voice dripping with pleading desperation while her lips curled into a sinister grin. "You're too late, you know." The ground trembled violently beneath my feet as a deep, pulsing moan emanated from the walls, shaking the very fabric of the store. The aisles closed in around me, casting long shadows that twisted and morphed, imitating the horrors I had run from and the very faces of the lost souls that begged for release. "Join us," Claire echoed the word, resonating and looping endlessly within the fabric of reality. I stumbled back, terror holding me in its vice, fingertips brushing the edge of a shelf filled with mocking, grinning toys, each face grinning in perverse delight, their hollow eyes flickering with the flickering light above me. An overwhelming sense of futility engulfed my Mindy was trapped in a web of horrors I had unwittingly woven. In that moment, the lights around me exploded, plunging everything into tumbling darkness as laughter ricocheted around me, shattering my every thought. And from the very bowels of the store, a monstrous form emerged, features twisting with ever-shifting shadows. As it loomed closer, I felt the very air drain from my lungs, the whispers now a cacophony of despair rising to a deafening crescendo, choose your fate, and just before the darkness swallowed me whole, I could have sworn I saw faces among the shadows, beckoning with outstretched hands, longing for connection, even as they grinned with malicious intention. I gasped, heart racing as I realized this was far from over. Her soul might be lost to darkness forever. And as I felt the cold grip of doom closing in, my scream died within me, caught between two realities. Help! I called into the void, knowing full well that whatever awaited me on the other side was a waking nightmare I would never escape. The darkness shuddered around me like a living entity, its presence oppressive as I fought to regain control over the chaos that consumed me. I blinked through the shadow, desperate to understand how this could be happening. How could I return here, to this cursed Dollar Tree that had morphed into an abyss of despair? Each shelf brimming with sadness and dread clawed at my senses, painting grotesque pictures of the horrors trapped within. I had fought so hard to escape, yet here I was, surrounded by the echoes of anguish and betrayal that pulsed through the aisles like a fever dream. Claire! I screamed into the void, hoping my voice would reach her through the blinding darkness that swirled. The air trembled with energy, waiting, taunting me, as the memories of our once joyful friendship intruded upon my mind, clawing for a chance to shatter my resolve. I stumbled forward, the flickering lights above oscillating between moments of stark clarity and consuming darkness. Muffled cries emerged from the corners of my mind, lost souls reverberating with pain, tangled in the web of torment that clung to this forsaken store. The walls seemed to close in on me each moment, whispering accusations that licked at the fringes of my sanity. You cannot change what you have done, a voice hissed from the shadows. I pressed forward, hot tears streaming down my cheeks. I can still save her. I defied the taunts surrounding me, pulling memories of Claire from the depths of my heart. She had fought back for me, had sacrificed herself. Would it be my turn to bring her back now? In that moment, the dim light below revealed a crack in the floor, pulling my gaze downwards. There, nestled among the cracked tiles of despair, was a faint glimmer, a familiar shimmer of Claire's necklace, the one she wore every day. My blood ran cold as I knelt to retrieve it, feeling the weight of every moment we had shared woven into its fragile beauty. It felt warm against my skin, pulsating with a sickly rhythm that matched the heartbeat of the store. Help us! The specters of lost souls howled around me, their pleas dripping with desperation as I clutched the necklace. In that very instant, it became clear the store's heart was not merely a physical entity, it was connected to every person it had consumed, the collective anguish serving as both lifeline and binding contract. You can't leave without fulfilling the pact. I blinked against the flickering light, staring into the yawning chasm of darkness that threatened to pull me under. Was I destined to join those shadows, to sever the thread that tethered me to my own humanity? I inhaled deeply, feeling the warmth of emotion ignite a flicker of hope within. Claire, I whispered again, the name a prayer upon my lips. I will find you. As if in response, a fierce wind whipped through the aisles, scattering dust and debris into the air. Shadows writhed, twisting into forms too familiar, faces I had seen only in passing. I stepped back, understanding dawning amidst the darkness. These were not merely lost souls, they were remnants of past employees like Claire, their faces hovering like lost memories trapped in this purgatory. The darkness rippled, recoiling in fear of the light in my heart. This was not just about Claire, it was about all those who had come before. A different kind of power surged within me, a defiance against the yearning to succumb. You have no hold over me, I roared, gripping the glimmering necklace tightly. Against the pulsating abyss, the lost souls surged forward, glimmering with intent. Together. They cried. Together, we will break the curse. Their voices merged, rising like a tide against the shadows, harmonizing a melody that resonated with one piercing true the truth that severed the hold Donovan and his darkness had on me. A luminescent light erupted, enveloping me, banishing the darkness as I felt the collective weight of hope binding us together. With every ounce of fear clawing at my skin, I stepped forward into the sanctity of light, shattering the veil of despair with the brilliance of our connection. I felt the shadows shriek as they disintegrated, dissolving into wisps of nothingness. The world around us trembled, shelves collapsing, the remnants of the store warping and folding as the shadows retreated, their anguished cries diminished to faint echoes. But just as the light enveloped everything in radiant flare, a new presence emerged. Mr. Donovan materialized, his monstrous grin twisting with rage. "You think you can escape?" He spat, the layers of darkness swirling around him. "This isn't over." My resolve hardened at his words. I could hear Claire's laughter amidst the chaos, buoying me against the tempest. "It's more than over," I countered, feeling the pulse of connection swell within me. "You've lost control, and I won't let you take anyone else." With that, I reached into the luminous glow of the necklace, its power resonating through every soul tethered to this place. I sent that energy crashing toward Donovan, the radiant heat burning through his darkness, purifying all the despair forged from suffering. The shadows erupted, ricocheting in all directions, engulfing him in a violent storm of light. For a fleeting moment, everything paused, the radiance blinding, illuminating even the darkest corners of the store. Then came the sound of something shattering, like the cracking of ice beneath burdens too heavy to bear, echoed by silence as the pulsating heart of the store stilled, consumed by the brilliance of unity. Donovan's screams were swallowed by the brightness as he vanished into nothingness. And in that waking moment, I could have sworn I heard Claire's voice echo on the breeze. "Thank you." But as the last remnants of darkness dissolved, and the light dimmed, revealing the now empty Dollar Tree, a cold chill engulfed the air. An unsettling silence hung heavily, wrapping around me like a threadbare blanket. I glanced around, searching for even the flicker of a soul to accompany me through the lingering emptiness. My heart sank as I felt a depressive weight thickening in the air. I was free, yes, but the chilling realization of something far worse took root in my mind. Just as I thought the shadows had been extinguished, a shudder swept through the store, igniting an insidious laughter that echoed within the air, drumming against the silence. "Not everyone was released," a shadow whispered, slithering out from beneath a poorly stacked shelf where the glowing light had failed to penetrate. A sinister grin emerged from the darkness, the faces of those who had once been lost glimmering in helpless rage, stories left untold, begging for my attention. As the laughter crescendoed, the realization hit me like an ice-cold wave. I had fought against the darkness, but true escape was impossible. The shadows of despair would linger forever, hungry for the next lost soul to come wandering through its doors. Turning slowly, I caught my reflection in a shard of broken glass, and what I saw pulled the breath from my chest. My own eyes stared back, shadowed and dim, filled with the same haunting emptiness that had forever marred the faces of those caught in this place. As I stumbled backward, whispering Claire's name again into the encroaching darkness, I understood my own fate and that all was not finished after all, that I will always be watching echoed in the corridors of this forsaken place. And as the audience of lost souls emerged from the silhouette of shadows, I felt the chill extricating my final grasp on hope that in the end, I knew my victims would not be the only ones watching. Something darker yet lingered, waiting to feed. Some doors, once opened, cannot be closed.